Hello everybody, welcome to Sports Bet Daily. It is June the 4th here and we've got a few, four sports actually we're going to talk about today. And just looking at the lineup, what's interesting is we've got quite a few World Cups happening at the moment. We're going to talk about Cricket World Cup with the lovely Ed Hawkins, darts with Russ Yerson, and then obviously we're going to move on to Canadian Open and CSGO Esports with Adam Booth and Craig Edwards there with Canadian Open. So both cricket and darts were in the World Cup. We've got Women's World Cup, football, and then we've got Rugby World Cup. So it is the year of World Cups. So listen, let us commence. We're going to talk Cricket World Cup now with the man in the know. Ed Hawkins, welcome to the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. It's always a pleasure. Now, the first thing that I've got to talk about now, so one of the guys that works here is from India. And we're at the coffee machine as you are, and he comes up and he tells me that England got defeated by Pakistan with a big smile on his face. He's obviously very happy about that. England are still favourites though. So the question is what happened? Does that sort of spell bad things for their chances to win? And what can they look to learn from it?
Well, as you know, Natalie, I'm quite downhearted about England's chances in this World Cup purely because of their price. They've always been far, far too short for me. As I bored you to tears last week about it, and I'm just about to start again now. England can do one thing well, and that's bat. They're a really good batting team, but they've got a dodgy bowling lineup, and they don't have a bowling lineup which is traditionally profiled with a World Cup winning team. So that combined with their price means they're stinking the place out for me. And so far, we've pretty much seen well, not what we expected from England, because they are the best batting team there's ever been, but their batting has not fired at all. And their batting didn't fire against Pakistan. It let them down badly. And this is their issue. If their batting doesn't motor, which sometimes it can't, then they're going to be in trouble. And they were going after what would have been a world record chase in a World Cup. Against Pakistan at Trent Bridge yesterday, and they didn't get up, and they probably should have done. They were well in charge of the game with 50 or so to get, but they fell short in the end, and England's chances haven't been badly hit by that defeat because the makeup of the tournament means they're going to have to finish in the first four to qualify for the semi-finals. And although I'm quite gloomy about England, I really don't see them finishing a fifth position or a sixth. They'd have to have a major meltdown for that to happen. This could be the beginning of the major meltdown, but I'm not going to start pulling England apart just after that Pakistan loss. I think it was probably a bit of a one-off. They'll probably bounce back. They've got two absolute gimmies in this tournament in Sri Lanka and Afghanistan. That would put them on 3 wins, and they only need to win another 2 games, minimum 2 games, to probably get to the semi-finals. So, they'll be all right for the semi-finals, I think. But when the pressure comes to bear in that knockout game and then in a possible final, those issues with their bowling and those wobbles with their batting might resurface again. I think what we've seen so far from England is nerves. They're anxious.
Oh, okay.
They've really got to damp that out.
Yeah, because that's what you said. You said there's one thing that they do, and they do it so well, is the batting, and then obviously they're not batting, so that's quite nervous, really. I noticed the price is still actually the same from when we first spoke on England, even with their loss there. I have to say, right now, I would be too shaky to take that one.
They're too shaky. They're too shaky.
Yeah,
and you're going to see India. You're going to see India in action against South Africa tomorrow on a really flat pitch down in Southampton, and we're expecting India to look like $1 million, admittedly against a weak South Africa team. But as I've said time and time again, in India, compared to England, do lots of things better than England. They bowl better. Their economy rate is better. Their strike rate ranking is better. They're generally just better in the field, and they almost bat as well. I think the only thing they don't do quite as well with the bat as England is the rate of scoring that they go at. England go faster, but India's average is with about, I think it's just slightly better. That might have changed since the World Cup started, but certainly previously, 2-year form, that stat, before a World Cup ball was bowled, India were really up there. So, yeah, England are a terrible bet.
Yeah.
And so that's the case before a ball was bowled. So we're not jumping on a bandwagon here. We've been saying it for weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what about right now then? And then I'll move on to some next questions on the futures. Are there any sort of tickets that you would look into? I'm seeing that there's a lot of money going on West Indies at the moment. India, you're mentioning there at 4.5. Are those some teams that we should be looking at if anybody wanted to play the futures market right now?
Yeah, I think that's fair. India and West Indies, one at second price favourite, and then West Indies, you're still getting some pretty big numbers on. And West Indies were impressive against Pakistan in that opening match where their bowling unit really got amongst Pakistan but were basically scared them. They were too quick and they didn't like the short pitch bowling. And West Indies were praised to that. They can't do that every game. If they try to do that every game, West Indies will get found out. And their game coming up against Australia on Thursday, I believe, will get a really good idea of what West Indies are capable of. If they try to do that against Australia, they'll come unstuck. They need to be much smarter. They need to mix up their lengths, change variations, slower balls, what have you, and do things much more smarter than just bowling short balls. That's not going to work against Australia. So really impressed with West Indies, what they did in that game against Pakistan. I'm really impressed with their batting. They bat deep and they have some really terrific fast scorers in that West Indies lineup, and they could be really one of those teams which could be consistently pushing 350 in this tournament. So, that's a feather in their cap. But what they do in the field is what will decide whether they go deep into the tournament or not. So we'll get an idea against Australia on Thursday.
Yeah. Did you expect South Africa to lose to Bangladesh?
A little bit, yeah, because of that's the sort of game that South Africa were always going to be vulnerable in. And the problem with the odds on that the day before, there were injury clouds over a number of Bangladesh players, and that made basically Bangladesh a difficult pick with 24 hours to go. But on the morning of the game, they looked like a strong bet, and it's a great shame for South Africa. What probably swung the game was the injury to Lungi Ngidi, who we've talked about before, is one of the best fast bowlers in the world. They lost him. He'd only bowled 4 overs. And if he'd been available for the full 10, he could have made a huge difference. As it is, South Africa now going up against India tomorrow in Southampton. And if they lose that, their World Cup is done, because they've also lost Dale Steyn to injury for the whole tournament today. Their bowling stocks have been destroyed really by injuries and niggles. The hamstring injury to Ngidi is a real blow for them. He's not going to play in that game against India. How serious the strain is yet to be seen. But if they lose against India, that's 3 defeats out of 3. And they're going to have to win 5 games minimum to qualify for those semi-finals. So they're going to have to win 5 of the last 6. And with their bowling attack so weak, you just can't see that now. So it's a big game for them tomorrow, and to be frank, they're really, really up against it. And the odds reflect that, because India are going off no better than 1.57 I've seen. So
yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. And even dropping, actually, you've got it's 1.5 now. New Zealand against Bangladesh is 1.33. So have you looked into any plays across those 2 matches for tomorrow?
Yeah, so there's some good bets to be had still in that game tomorrow in the India-South Africa game. What we know about the Southampton wicket is that it's really good for batsmen. The bowlers are going to really struggle. Now, you've got a second-string South Africa bowling lineup here, so India really should be tucking in. They should be getting a big score. And that means that Rohit Sharma is a good bet to be top India run scorer tomorrow. This is a consistent issue with the top India run scorer market. The favourite is always Virat Kohli. Doesn't matter what he does, doesn't matter what he doesn't do, because he's the most famous Indian player and probably the most famous cricketer in the world. All the money comes for him. His prize is based on reputation rather than record. So he's going off too short and out of line with how many times he actually wins this market. This is what this bet is all about. Rohit Sharma, you're going to be able to bet him at 7-2 pretty much across the board. And we know from his hit rate on 2-year form in this market, he's winning along the lines of about an 8-5 shot. So you've got a massive chunk in your favour there. And it's a really, really solid bet. It's clearly a wrong price. And we know the market's been priced up erroneously and based on things which get our backs up as punters. So Rohit's top score for India. There is nothing wrong with that bet whatsoever. It's just a solid, pure value bet.
There you go. There you go. And anything Bangladesh, New Zealand?
It's a bit of a tricky game because the New Zealand bowling attack is so strong, and we had this issue with this against the Sri Lankans, who just couldn't live with the New Zealand pace attack. We really, really hope Bangladesh can stick around if they're going to bat first and give us some runs on the board, so that we can bet Ross Taylor at about 4-1. Very, very similar situation with the Ross Taylor bet to the Rohit Sharma bet. He should be shorter than 4-1 on his hit rate over the last 2 years, and he's the only New Zealand batsman who is the wrong price. By the way, that goes the same way for the Indian top bat market. Rohit's the only guy who is the wrong price. Okay, so Ross Taylor is the only guy who's the wrong price for top New Zealand run scorer. Going to get 4-1 on him. So we need Bangladesh to get some decent runs on the board for that bet to work for us. Against the Sri Lankans, it didn't work because they just got blown away with a really low score, and the two opening batsmen for New Zealand were just able to knock those runs off, and Taylor didn't even get in. So if Bangladesh bat first, let's get some runs on the board for them. But if New Zealand bat first, we'd also like the Bangladesh bowlers to nip out a couple of wickets really early on, so Taylor gets the most opportunity. But as I said, he is 4-1, and he should be shorter on how many times he actually wins in this market. And the Bangladesh bowling is pretty good, actually. So there are bowlers there who will give the likes of Martin Guptill and Colin Munro, who are the big hitters in that opening slot for New Zealand, a bit of a hurry up. They'll move the ball off the seam. So I think Ross Taylor is a good bet at 4-1.
Yeah, all right, great stuff. Ed Hawkins is supplying us daily content previewing the matches each day. It's on oddsmarket.com/tips/cricket. I will put the link in the description box of the clip of this cricket video. So make sure just bookmark it and head in every day to check it out. Final question I do have to ask is non-cricket related here. I can see I can see more than the audience can see. Your picture wall, I have to say, because I have a picture wall and it does not look as good as that picture wall. How did you get it? So mine looks like I threw them, and actually it took a long time to try and place them, and they didn't place any well. Do you have a tip for how I can get my picture wall to look like your picture wall?
Yeah, you can ask my wife to do it for you.
Oh, really? Well, actually, my husband, me and my husband did it as a team, but it just looks awful. My mum was like, you should take this down. It really doesn't look very good. But we like the photos in it, so we keep it up. All right. Wonderful stuff. Thank you very much, Ed Hawkins. I will see you next week. Best of luck with everything. Keep those winning tips coming, those great articles, and take care.
Bye.
All right, wonderful stuff. So from one World Cup, we move on to another, the World Cup of Darts. And who other that can run us through this is our very own Russ Yerson, Premier League punter boy. Here he is. Russ, you got a tan. You're on your holidays, or is that just from the English weather?
That's the English weather. It's been a fantastic weekend in London, so I've been outside with the kids at a few parks and farms, keeping them busy. So it's been good.
Nice. I can't believe how many World Cups we're having this year. Obviously, as well, you'll be with us covering the Rugby World Cup as well. But until then, and that's in September, isn't it?
That's correct.
That is so very exciting to hear all about that. But darts. And so the first thing, obviously, is Netherlands and England are complete joint favourites. And they're the only ones to have ever won the title. Is that right?
That's spot on. Good research, Nat. Yeah, it's been going 8 years, and England and Holland have won 4 World Cups apiece. This is the 9th year. And as you said, England and Holland are joint favourites at 3-1, 4.0.
Yeah, and it's not a surprise because obviously you've got Van Gerwen, who is number 1, and so he's obviously representing Netherlands. You've got our very own Rob Cross and Michael Smith representing England, and then you also have a player that I'm not too familiar with is Jermaine Watermena. Have we spoken about him before?
We haven't. He is 23rd ranked in the world in the PDC. He often gets beat in the first round of key tournaments, and because he's 23rd in the world, he doesn't make some of the regular tournaments that the PDC put on throughout the year. Obviously, the Premier League he doesn't make because that's the top 8 in the world, and he's on sort of the smaller circuits, and again, not doing too well. Usually, it's Raymond van Barneveld and Michael van Gerwen that make up the Dutch team, thus them winning half of the World Cups that they've been. I can't see Holland doing much in this tournament because of Jermaine Watermena. Michael van Gerwen is going to have to play phenomenally well every time he throws a dart to give Watermena any chance to either throw well himself or to check out before someone else can beat him to it. So, yeah, for me, Holland are 4th ranked. They are in the same side of the draw as England. That's I think England should make their way to the final.
Right, so it is going to be either England or Netherlands that makes it through to the final. And because if anybody can do it, Van Gerwen would be the man, but it would be very hard to back with your money backing on literally a one-man band, whereas obviously with England, you've got 2 strong competitors. What other countries then? So if you're sort of saying that England are going to knock out Netherlands in the group stage, who else is who else of the teams are going to emerge from the group?
In terms of the World Cup of Darts, it's knockout all the way through. So there's first round, second round, quarterfinals, semi-finals, and finals. So the top half of the draw, England 1 seed, Holland 4th seed. I don't see England having any problems, especially when you've got, as I said, Rob Cross 2nd in the world, Michael Smith 6th in the world. And if you look at who else England are going to come up against, they're 30, 40, 50 ranked in the world. So I think England will definitely reach the final. In the bottom half of the draw, you've got Scotland that are ranked number 2. They've got Peter Wright and Gary Anderson, that are going to represent them. And for me, their toughest opponents will be Belgium and Wales. Belgium have got Kim Huybrechts and Dimitri van den Berg. Now, both of them have performed fairly well when it's come to the World Championships in December. They're ranked around about 25-1 best price. So of the big outsiders, if you're going to have a couple of quid each way, they're definitely worth it. But for me, from the bottom half of the draw, Scotland are the ones that I think are going to make the final. And at 13-2, England-Scotland final is, again, a good bet for me. And at 15-8, 2.87, Scotland to reach the final. Gary Anderson didn't play in the Premier League of Darts. I think he's fresh. And although Peter Wright finished 8th in the Premier League of Darts, he didn't perform that well. He's still ranked 6th in the world. And when him and Gary Anderson team up, they finished runner-up last year to Van Barneveld and Van Gerwen. And I think they can at least repeat that, which will mean that hopefully 2 out of the 3 bets will definitely come in.
Interesting as well, because I was just doing, I don't know, do you or will you be following the Women's World Cup of Football?
I certainly will.
Yes.
I know Ray Parlour really well, ex-Arsenal legend. He was on a trip with Alex Scott, ex-England player, and she is firmly behind the French, which I think they're about 100-30, 4.33. She thinks the French will come out on top on home soil.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to put my money with the French. Although England hopefully will do really well, get to the semi-final, or even I'm not sure whether they play France or not. But yeah, France all the way for me. And it'd be great if England can do well.
Yeah, I'm liking USA as well. A pretty good women's football team, joint favourites there with the host. But yes, I was bringing it up because I just previewed England versus Scotland. It's one of the opening matches there, so of the Women's World Cup. Do you bet a Women's World Cup?
Not particularly, but given that it's going to be on terrestrial TV over here, and obviously everyone's behind England, I'll definitely keep an eye out because a few of the girls do play for Arsenal, and obviously from Ray's tip on France, I will be backing them and then watching with interest.
Yes.
And now we haven't spoken about last week's two finals quickly.
Okay.
In the Europa League and Champions League.
Go on.
Obviously, for being an Arsenal fan, if I'm honest, the humiliation of what happened in the second half wasn't great. But obviously, a massive relief that Spurs didn't win the Champions League, and I think life goes back to normal now. But full congratulations to Liverpool, finishing second in the league, only losing one game. And although the Champions League wasn't a great final, which I didn't expect it either, given both teams hadn't played for 3 weeks, obviously Liverpool came out on top, and congratulations to them. Yeah,
I know it would have been a double whammy, wouldn't it? Craig Edwards has got some questions for you. He says, Russ, do you think there is small value in Poland?
Is there small value in Poland? My honest answer is no. But if you look at the first round, it's the best of 9 legs. So there has been some shocks in the past. And as we saw in boxing with Joshua v. Ruiz, anything is possible. So it's definitely worth a couple of quid each way. But for me, honestly, not for me.
Yeah. And any thoughts on Wales?
Yeah, obviously you've got Gerwyn Price that has performed very well in the Premier League of Darts this year. He partners with Brett Dolan, but similar to Holland, it's a full team effort to win the World Cup of Darts, and I don't think Gerwyn Price can do it on his own. He'll perform well as he's done in the Premier League of Darts. He'll certainly love playing for Wales, especially as obviously you look at his improvement the last few years. But I just don't think they'll have enough coming up against Cross and Smith. That again, you put them two together, as I said, 2nd and 6th in the world, both playing reasonably well, and I think they'll definitely want to win the Premier League of Darts for England this year.
Yeah. Now, obviously, Netherlands and England, like I said, have been the only teams that won the World Cup. You think that Scotland are going to meet England in the finals? So the question is who prevails?
Scotland are 4-1 outright, 5.0. Obviously, I'm putting my neck on the line. I think England will win just because Cross and Smith, again, will enjoy teaming up together. It's the first time they have 2 very good players, 2 consistent players, both high scoring. And when it comes to the team game that is the World Cup of Darts, I think the checkouts that they can do under pressure when it counts, England will come out on top. I think for me that if I'm looking at the top bet, it is England-Scotland final at 13-2. I think there's massive value there, given that I think both will come out top half and bottom half.
All right. Okay. So England and Scotland final. Who's lifting the trophy? You think it's England?
Yeah, it'd be close. It'd be a good final. But I said, put my neck on the line. Cross and Smith should just have enough for Anderson and Wright.
All right. Wonderful stuff. We're trying to get Craig. There he is. Craig Edwards, right. So we will say goodbye. Russ, are you doing any Euro 2020 qualifier betting? Or are you giving it a break till the domestic season? That's why you got that tan.
Yeah. Obviously, always available on Sportsbet Daily to send over some picks once obviously the research is done. But it will be a couple of weeks of rest.
Ah, that's nice. I got 1 week planned in June, I think it is. June, July? July. I know it's July. It's July when literally everything, because we're now covering like Nations League, Euro 2020 qualifiers, Women's World Cup, you know, so it's the fun never ends over here. So anyway, enjoy your summer holidays. We'll get you back in soon. And yeah, take care. Best of luck and speak to you soon.
Brilliant. Thanks, Nat. Enjoy, everyone. Take care.
Cheers, Russ. Bye-bye. All right, that was Russ Yerson. I don't know if you guys remember him from Premier League Punters, and which obviously will be back next season, but it's at Russ Yers if you want to give him a follow on Twitter. All right, moving over now, we're going to talk Golf Canadian Open with the lovely Craig Edwards here, pulling out those big odds as always, I am sure. Hello, Craig. Did you learn anything from Russ's? I know you were setting those questions. Did you learn anything? Do you agree with his tips?
Yeah, I thought I'd had a little bet on Poland, so I was kind of curious because I thought they were, you know what I'm like, for a big price, and thought there was a shred of value. And like you said, it's worth a small each way bet, but you know, it was good reasoning that he gave that that's all it was worth. So yeah, I enjoyed it. It was I like the darts.
What about name the finalists though? Because those odds were a little bit more up your alley. I think what they
well,
like.
I didn't look at name the finalists, but if Wales and Poland are in opposite halves, I will be interested. Yes, I don't know if they are.
You've got. I'm just trying to pull out. I've got cricket odds. I've got cricket odds at the moment. Just from, I'll take a peek. But listen, let us start off with, so Canadian Open. First question, obviously, that I was quite surprised when I looked at the odds was why just Dustin Johnson was the favourite for this tournament and not Brooks Koepka, who just disposed of him as number one. Shouldn't he be the favourite?
For me, yes. I think they've got similar chances, but there's a lot more chance that Brooks will win the tournament if he gets in the van than Dustin. Dustin's strike rate is not what Brooks is. So, yes, at the odds, I'd much rather take Brooks every day of the week, although I'm not convinced this course will suit either. If the reports are right from a few years ago, it's not really a course that's going to be overpowered. So, kind of, it's nice for the Canadian Open that they've gone there the week before the US Open, but I'm kind of surprised that they've gone there the week before the US Open. You know, I'm sure Tiger's rubbing his hands for next week, and it's like I say, I'm not convinced the course will suit either player.
Yeah. So that leads me on to my next question there. What sort of course is the Canadian Open, and who does it suit?
Well, it's held the Canadian Open 3 times at Hamilton, the Hamilton course. It's in Ontario, and it's set in secluded heavy woodland. It's quite a similar track, from what I can gather, to the ones that at Colonial and at Hilton Head, where they play the Charles Schwab and the RBC Heritage just recently. It's a course which will suit fairways and greens type players. Although there's reports on social media today that they have removed a significant amount of the woodland from the last tournament in 2012 to now. And so whether that will make a difference, that's only kind of come out today, that fact. So I shouldn't think it will make too much of a difference, because still the course will be sculpted the same. And the premium will be on. It sounds like, from what Jim Furyk said, that you need to hit the right part of the green to leave yourself the uphill putt, and you need to strategically plot your way around the course. Mm-hmm. So Dustin Johnson, obviously Brooks Koepka could win, but their power game will not have any effects. They will have to win with their finesse more than their power.
Yeah. Why do you think that they're playing this before the US Open?
Well, I think the Canadian Open is a big open. It's behind the British Open and the US Open. It's got the longest history of any golfing contest. Mm-hmm. So it's got a lot of history. So you can understand that they'll want it on their resume when their career ends. And it's just that this year's scheduling, it's come the week before the US Open. So I got to admire them for going, but it will be a completely different test the next week, and I'm kind of surprised that they've both gone. But you know, I wouldn't rule out Brooks Koepka. Obviously, if he gets away again, he may well win, but he's not going to overpower this course. There's no way on earth.
Yeah.
So.
And why is Tiger Woods not playing then? Because you're saying, you know, he's rubbing his hands. His players are going to like go and play. Why is he not? He knows that you need to rest, and he's already got it on his career sheet.
Yes, he's played it a few times in his younger part of his career, not in his latter part. As scheduling's become more important, he's pretty much only going to play the minimum requirement of tournaments on the PGA Tour, which will be about 15. He's not been doing many more than that for a long time, and probably if Brooks Koepka is going to dominate the sport the way Tiger Woods has done and keep the myths surrounding his play, as well as the sharpness, he may well have to reduce his schedule to about 15 tournaments in a season, because the travel, the change of time zones and everything, week to week, they finish late on a Sunday, they're going to be playing again early on a Thursday. You know, even though they are super fit sportsmen, it is not. It's wear and tear. So yeah, I think Tiger will be happy. He'll just turn up at Pebble Beach, which he knows well, and he'll prepare for next week, and they'll still be travelling, I suppose.
Yeah. So is there something, obviously, that we can take? So obviously, we're going to make our bets out for this tournament, but is there going to be sort of like informational things that you will learn from the Canadian Open that we can then take with us to the US Open?
I don't think there'll be a lot. The only thing you will learn is what players are coming into form that haven't been in form. That's always worth keeping an eye out for. Players that have been not really doing it this season, then suddenly they look for a better performance. Those are the sort of players I look for. Players that have had an improved performance one week, and it's given their confidence a little nudge. They've found a little tweak in the game, and the next week it comes together. But overall, the course, no. Next week, the US Open, even par or over par, will win at Pebble Beach. And this week, it'll be well under par. It'll be, it'll be quite an easy course and a test in comparison. So, no, I don't think we're going to learn a lot, really.
All right. Now, let's get to the meat and gravy, or whatever you call it. I was looking at some bets myself, because I'm thinking, like, wonder what he's going to go for. So, Bubba Watson, get him at 34. You quite like betting on Bubba Watson. Does he?
I do.
Yeah. Does he suit well for this course?
He doesn't float my boat one little bit for this course, I'm afraid. I think it's just going to be too much of a fiddly exam for him. I know that there's other people that will say differently. Bubba's been playing well all season. So obviously he's got the class, but
not for this course.
Not for this course. He would be pretty much one of the early ones off my list. But he has been playing well this season, and you'd never want to totally say a proven winner like Bubba's not going to win. But I'm comfortable not betting Bubba this week.
All right. Then there is Jim Furyk, and you were saying that obviously he's been telling how you must play this course. So he's obviously got a very good idea, and a nice juicy 51 there with Ladbrokes and William Hill. Are you putting some money on him?
Yeah, it's definitely Jim Furyk. It's his sort of course. He played well last week at Memorial. He didn't quite he got to the top of the leaderboard a couple of times, or the first page, and fell away. This week's test will suit him a little bit more. He's a specialist from the Heritage and Colonial, and he'll know how to plot his way around this course. Back in the world's top 50 now on this good season that he's having. I like Jim Furyk. And let's not forget, he won here in, I think it was 2006 in the Canadian Open. So he's got all that experience to draw on, and travelling back to a course where you've won in the past, your endorphins go up, and that then means your biorhythms become in tune. And in a hand-to-eye coordination sport like golf and snooker, to be that little bit more relaxed helps you play to that absolute peak that you're capable of. And I'm a great believer in endorphins and biorhythms from travelling back to venues you've done well in before. Even as you're travelling, you're starting to relax. You're relaxing, looking forward to the week, even if you're out of form, because you've got such positive memories from there. They're some of your best times. And yeah, I always like to have players like that on my side. And so Jim Furyk just fits every criteria this week. The only problem, he's just getting older. He's 49, but he still plays like a spring chicken, and he's been such a solid player for 30 years. He'll give anyone a good run for the money each way.
Yeah. And what about Brooks Koepka? Obviously, we've spoken about him. I know he's super low, but surely we've got to put a, on the number one here. You've got to put a bid, or you're just like, no, those odds are not even worth me taking my hand out of the pocket and making the bet. Or is that's what you're just like, no.
The other thing is that he will have half an eye on next week, so he may be tweaking his game.
It's like
he may not be
up.
Totally focused. His focus will probably be on the US Open. Obviously, Brooks Koepka can, if he plays well and puts well, he can pick the field up and probably win by 8 shots. But no, I'll be overlooking him this week. Probably look back at him next week at the US Open, where puts a lot more pressure on people's games.
All right, so you're going on Jim Furyk. What are your tips here, betting heading into the Canadian Open?
Right, so one interesting bet is a guy we bet at the Colonial about 3 weeks ago, Kevin Tway. His father was the champion at this course, Bob Tway, in 2002. And I've got a feeling Kevin Tway's just coming into form. He showed up well that week we tipped him. He just didn't quite finish the job off. And he's never played at this course before, but he is a type of player that plays well at Colonial. So I've got to believe he'll play well here. He may have them positive memories of his dad winning here, strangely enough. And, it would be quite a thing for a father and son to win the same competition. Most golf playing sons, there's plenty of them, but most of them aren't really good enough to win tournaments. And he's already won the Safeway Open on tour this season. So Kevin Tway, each way, 80 to 1 plus. I think there's still a bit of 100 to 1 about. Scott Piercy looks to have a solid chance. Played well at the Heritage Colonial. He won here. He was the last winner here in 2012 for all the same reasons. So that's a totally easy pick. Funny player got for a top 20 finish is Josh Teeter, a 40-year-old veteran on the PGA Tour. Back here in 2012, he was 4th. He was in quite a rich vein of form, probably the form of his life. And last time up at Colonial, he made a top 20 finish. I nearly backed him because he's a real Colonial course specialist. It's the one place he plays well at, year in, year out. And so I'm taking him to carry that form over this week into the top 20 finish. Mm-hmm. And Bud Corley in a top 20 finish was placed here in 2012. And last week was his best week all season by a long way. So he's going to be a solid top 20 finish. And finally, I'd put up Ryan Palmer, who's, again, a Colonial, similar type player to Furyk and Piercy, and he tends to either miss the cut or finish in the top 10. So he's quite a sporting each way bet for people, often gets in the top 5 or 6 places, and has won a couple of times on the PGA Tour as well. Mm-hmm. So I think you have quite a good mix there of players. I quite like Brendan Todd, who's got in as first alternate today. He got he's on the comeback trail, having been in a dreadful slump of form, and he pre-qualified for the US Open. I've been following him a while now, and I think he's teetering on getting back to his best form. So, but the bookies, because he's got in as first alternate, haven't really priced him up yet. So probably they will price him tomorrow, and anything over 200 to 1, people could have a little each way bet.
I'm sure you would. All right, fantastic stuff. Canadian Open. If you want to read the full article, head on over to oddsmarket.com on the tips tips page, and wonderful stuff. Craig Edwards at Edwards tips _. A pleasure, Craig, as always. Best of luck.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
With
Natalie,
all those high odds, and I'll speak to you soon.
See you soon, Natalie. Good night.
All right, bye-bye. Okie dokie. There we go. So, CSGO. It is the finals. Season 7 finals. Bring him to the show. Adam Booth. I can hear myself.
Nat,
Hello.
I gotta say, this is basically 1 year since you and I started talking esports with SBR, because we talked about this exact tournament about a year ago today. I think a couple weeks off, but this season 6 was one of the first CSGO tournaments you and I did a show about.
Oh, so it's like happy anniversary.
Yeah, happy anniversary. I'm sorry I didn't get you anything.
Oh, that's all right. Well, listen, if you bring some winning tips, that's all I'm after. So let's see what you got. So it is the finals with a prize pool of $500,000. Very nice indeed. But the question is anybody, to quote your part of your article, can anyone be good enough to knock out the Danes in a series? Can they?
Well, I think they can. We've seen it happen a couple times this year, but I don't really think. Well, I'm banking on nobody doing it in the playoffs, at least at ECS at the finals this weekend. Astralis have a great track. So the tournament's taking place in London. It's the format is always just a short 3-day little stint. I think it's Thursday this year. I think it's starting Thursday. So this year it's actually going Thursday to the 9th. So this year it's 4 days, but still it's a short little one, and Astralis have won the last 2, and they have been the sort of focal point of some ridicule in the community, some I'm not going to say harassment, but the community's sort of been criticizing them for their performance since winning the last major earlier this year in February. So I feel like this is one of those. I don't usually bet with trying to guess player motivations, especially in team games where we really don't know coming in what the psyche is of 5 or 10 players. But I do think Astralis has a little bit of an opportunity for redemption, to sort of say, no, we're still here. We've had a sort of a string of mediocre performances, but this is a title that we're going to bring home and sort of show you guys, shut up the critics, basically, is what I would be doing in their position.
Well, but that's the thing, and there are two types of people. You see, there's people that when you do this, right, they fight against it and they're like, I'll prove you wrong. That's the kind of person that I am. The other type of person, though, is the person that when you do something negative or you do something that they actually then will retreat into their retreat. So you think these guys are going to like they're going to shut the critics up. They're going to just be like, that's how you think that they're going to come and approach this.
Yeah, because Astralis, I mean, just like traditional sports, the best competitors want to win regardless of the stakes. They you could be playing card games and they'll still want to win. It's sort of something intrinsically built into champions that we want to be the best. We don't want people overshadowing us. Counter-Strike right now is so competitive that Astralis aren't really in a position to take anything for granted, and it's very easy for them or any top esports gamer to sort of coast and get behind on the meta. But I do believe Astralis, given they've had quite a bit of time off, they've only been playing Blast Pro Series tournaments, which are kind of, we've talked about them a couple times on the show, and I've said to you when we've done the show, if Astralis wants to win this weekend, they will win. And 2 out of 3 of those tournaments, we did not see the same caliber of play from them that we saw at the major back in February. Now, with such a short tournament, it's in London. They're flying from Denmark straight there. I think it's just let's take care of business and because okay, so what happened this weekend? I wrote about it in the article. I spent more time talking about sort of the drama in the scene than a bunch of the bets.
This is my summary: drama, tips. And it's like,
but it does set up context for what's coming up this summer, and that's why I thought it was important to discuss. So Liquid, which is a team that has been has been victimized by Astralis for much of the past year in grand finals. They took the world #1 spot based on sort of a website that ranks them, and it's sort of agreed that they're now the #1 team based on those rankings. But if you sort of, as a bettor, were to say, okay, let me see the odds, if Astralis is 1.8 or better, it's a no-brainer. You have to take them because they've absolutely owned Liquid for the past 12 months. Well, actually, going back further than that, but we'll talk about the past 12 months. So I really think this is a great... So I looked today. So I took Astralis to win on the outright market at Unibet 1.55 yesterday. It's actually 1.61 currently at Pinnacle. I love that. I mean, if it continues to go up, if we see a 1.66, 1.7, if people are really thinking, the Astralis era is over, I am happy to hit Astralis for a couple more units because we have no reason to think it's over other than conjecture and people thinking Astralis is bad without actually seeing they're bad. Do you know what I mean? So...
Yeah, I don't know, but I don't know. From what you've been saying to me, I'm a bit like, I don't know if I would bet on. You're saying that they've got all this like online abuse. They're coming in. They're like, and then it's kind of like if they want to win, they'll win. Oh God, I don't want to put my money on somebody who decides if they want to show up or not. You know what I mean? But
this is different than those past tournaments because it's a concrete land with 8 teams that Astralis had to qualify to play here. They weren't just given an invitation, direct invitation like they did at Blast Pro Series. Now, I think a good comparable analogy was a few weeks ago, Nadal lost, I think, to Tsitsipas at a clay tournament. Wasn't that correct? And then I think Whale Capper was discussing how he's going to come back in the next one, I think it was Rome, and smoke him. And that's what happened.
Yeah,
Nadal played like he had a chip and something to prove.
Yeah.
This is the mentality I think Astralis ought to have. And that's why I think there's a bit of value on them, even though their odds are a bit short. So I'm on them for the outright, and they also have a very, I'm not going to say easy first matchup, but they have a matchup versus a team that will know right away whether the Astralis era is over. Because if Astralis loses to this team, then I'll probably start waving the white flag, and I'll look to fade them the rest of the weekend because they really shouldn't lose their opening match, even though their opponent has some sort of upset potential against some of the other opposition.
All right. So you won me back a little bit. Even though the price for Astralis is low, Craig Edwards wouldn't touch that with a barge pole. I know with his prices. So what other than as far as like special bets, prop bets, anything else that you're looking at? So you like Astralis even though it's low. Is there anything else you like?
So I will be looking at some map props. I do play these a little bit. I usually keep them to myself because they have big odds, but they're very dependent on the meta. But I think I might post some of those. As far as match bets, I already took Astralis. Oops, sorry, it's right here. I already took Astralis minus 5.5 against Furia at 1.8 at Bet365.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like that. I mean, Fury can cover that spread on a good map for them. But I want to see Astralis struggle against a team like Fury before I'm willing to say, no, there's value on Fury at 1.9 or 1.8 to get double digits against the best team, who I still think is the best team in the world. Another one that I've looked at that I haven't placed yet is NIP as a slight underdog against NRG. I think NRG is just a North American team that really is hot and cold. I have a problem seeing them as a favorite against just about anybody. The next match was Complexity versus Vitality, and I mentioned in the article that there was rumors. Well, yesterday when I wrote it, I had heard that there was rumors that they would do some roster moves. Sure enough, as soon as the article was published, the roster move occurred. So the timing was a little off, but I'm glad I waited on that one just to see. I mean, the line's kind of moved too far now to take a bet, but Complexity has a new young player on their team. Don't know a ton about him, but I would say they're going to really struggle against the French squad of Vitality. So I took Vitality to win Group B, which is a future. And so I think that's as close to a free win as the French should have, given that the new player just came in and the player that went out was their in-game leader, like kind of like their captain or who organized the strategies. So that's going to really cripple Complexity's chances here at London. And then the final match was MIBR versus North. This one I'm going to have to look into a bit more before I place anything. North looked decently good last week at the DreamHack Dallas tournament. And MIBR have had some time off. They've only been playing ESL Pro League, ECS, and they beat Liquid, who is the #1 team in the world right now. So sorry, I gotta stop mocking. I gotta stop mocking them. They are justified. They've been playing at a lot of tournaments, so they've earned the points they've got. I just have a hard time believing that Liquid deserves it. Yeah. I'm gonna be mocked for that myself. But so MIBR North, I'm gonna have to look at potential maps. I might even just be safe and wait for the map to come out for that one. North have a great amount of firepower, so do MIBR. For me, this one is going to be who has the worst T side. So, because they both have really strong CT sides. So that one I'm going to wait on. But I can't believe it. We are actually not in a rush for time at the moment, right?
We are not in a rush for time. Yesterday I went over 20 minutes. Can you believe? I didn't know that I was going to go over because I put in Women's World Cup in the schedule right at the end until I got clearance, and I said, look, this show is going to go over because I have too much on. But we had EJ Jar, the Rainmaker, coming on to cover tennis, and Whale Kappa also covers women. So I was like, we've got to kind of do it all together, and, so people don't have to come on too many times during the week. And I said it will go over, but I said I'll keep it at an hour 10 minutes, and it was like an extra 10 minutes. And I came out of the studio and was like looking at me, and I'm just
really so used to having to be at the end of the show and sort of powering through everything right away that I probably talked quicker than I needed to. So yeah, any questions that you might have for me, Nat?
Well, I do have some questions. That's why I'm here, is to no. Well, the first question is actually just more of a curious thing. If it's in London, then surely you're going to go down. Is it fun to go and watch these tournaments?
So I've gone to the last 2 ECS. 2 years ago, I bought tickets. I'm going to say I bought them for my girlfriend and I, but I really just was curious and I wanted to go, and she came along with me and was a good sport about it, and we had fun, grabbed some beer. But last year I won tickets and I went down again. And this year I'm not going to go. My brother and my dad were just in London, so I was just there over this past weekend. And so I've had enough of London for, a couple months now. I can go down.
Wow, it takes you that, that was, Well, funny you say that because it's Father's Day here on June the 16th. And we have got one of the Gold Cup football matches playing here at our stadium. And so I obviously really wanted to go. Hans is really not that into football, but I was like, happy Father's Day, babe. I got you some tickets to go. I did it. So we're going to go and do that for Father's Day. I get to come with you. What a bonus. We're going to bring Lily, and then we're going to watch the game because it's for Father's Day.
Oh, nice.
And he was just like, he's so sweet.
Well, see, that's a nice
thank you. Though. But he knows that he must be thinking, why did she get me those tickets? Because I don't really like football. But he's just really polite. And so, there we go. Nice. All right. So All right. There we go. Okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, I'm just double check here. So, so the other thing, obviously, you've talked about some of the, like Liquid, Astralis, NRG, Tip. Are there any other players that we should be looking out for?
So that's always an interesting thing, because I find a lot of the CS community focuses on the star potential of individual players. And don't get me wrong, players can break a game wide open, or with a big clutch wreck the economy, or win a match and have, a great, their aim can be on point enough that it can carry their team through a game.
Mm-hmm.
But we find in a game like Counter-Strike, and I think this is really important from a betting perspective, not just a fan perspective, that it's the team cohesion,
yes.
Flashes, their separation as they enter a bomb site, their ability to trade for one another, because the aim and skill at this level, like that we'll see this weekend, is not that great between the best and the worst. Astralis aren't the best because they have all the best players on their team. I've said this nonstop for the past year. What makes them the best is their strategy. Their, when we see them on CT side, they'll work in 2 and 3 man groups to take part of take map control. They'll trade off each other effectively. They'll use their nades better than any other team. That's what makes them the best. And when we see them losing, it's because they're not being assertive and proactive on the map to do those things. So there are always players for example, MIBR has 2 former top 5 players in the world, or top 3 players in the world, Coldzera and Fallen.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys have had excellent stats, sort of improving since the major. Those 2 are game breakers. When they're on form, and they're both on form, they can almost just run any stretch they want and carry their team to victory. So MIBR is, I would say, a dark horse at this tournament, in the sense that if there's one team that I would actually be concerned can beat Astralis or has Astralis' number in the past, it's that team. Astralis, again, they have the clutch master Zipix. They have a great opera Device. But again, Device, his mechanics isn't better than Fallen's or Coldzera's. It's just that the team works so well in unison with him. Furia has some huge upset potential, as I mentioned. And we saw at DreamHack Dallas, they have enormous firepower. I mean, on their CT sides, they were like a wall when Vitality played them. And I forget who else. Fnatic, they just stomped Fnatic and Vitality, which are 2 top 10, top 15 teams. So I would be careful about the firepower on Furia and MIBR especially. But honestly, of the 8 teams here, Complexity is the only team that I would write off almost completely. And that's just because they've lost their IGL at a crucial time, 2 days before a tournament. It's just very difficult to have a solid map pool playing best of 3s against 7 other teams that have been putting in work for months together. So, yeah. And I was just going to mention one other thing, the format. So after they all play initial best of 1s, the opening round, and then they go into best of 3s for the remainder. And then the grand final, best of 5? No, best of 3 as well. So it's best of 1s for the first 4 matches, and then best of 3 series all the way throughout.
Awesome stuff. And
we're finishing 1 minute in perfect timing.
We did. Bill says, a motivated Astralis is worth the juice.
Yes, that's my point. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. This is not Blast Pro Series tournaments, which are the tournaments that Astralis has sort of got a partnership with, or they've signed a contract to do a bunch of their tournaments this year. ECS is a legitimate LAN with a bunch more of the world watching. It's in London. They've won these the past 2 years, so they care about it. I think 1.55, 1.6, whatever. Put a couple units down. If it doesn't come in, it doesn't come in. But I just can't see Astralis not being in the semifinals, finals on the final day.
All right. One very quick question. Musty just says, who's the fave for AFCON?
Who's the fave for what?
AFCON.
Let me pull this up. I've got to see this.
AFCON, or is that not? Is that maybe
AFCON. I think that's a football thing or something. Yeah, that's the Africa.
Oh,
That's Africa Cup of Nations.
Oh my goodness, we've not even gotten there yet. No, this week's all Nations League. We'll get to there. We are actually.
I can give them a pick. I'll try.
We will be covering
take
Africa
Nigeria.
Cup of Nations. We do very well in the past, actually. We cover Africa Cup of Nations. We're doing very well. So there we go. Africa Cup of Nations. All right. Adam Booth, Lock E QWERTY. There we go. Is his Twitter handle. Alex has chimed in. Africa Cup of Nations. Thanks, bud. You should have been there a little bit earlier. African Nations. We do very well. Ask Alex. He's on the chat. We do very well in Africa Cup of Nations. Locky QWERTY is Adam's Twitter handle. Thank you very much, Adam. Astralis all the way. Let's see if they can do this. Woohoo! And yeah, take care. And I'll see you soon.
See you later, Nat.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Really the thing. It's football. There's a time delay between when I see these come up and when I speak. So it's all coming in just now, obviously. Africa Cup of Nations. It sounded like AFCON. It sounded like, an esports thing. All right. Wonderful stuff. Well, that was a fun show taking us all over the map. Cricket, darts, Canadian Open and esports. We are back again tomorrow, Sports Bet Daily, as it says. And so tomorrow we are covering, so we're back with tennis. Sebastian Snice joins us with Whale Kappa. And then we're also going to preview as well Saturday's matches for the Euro 2020 qualifiers. If you can't wait until tomorrow and you're itching to make a bet right now, Martin Green has submitted his article literally like a couple of hours ago. I saw it come up, I saw it get posted. And so head on over to oddsmarket.com/tips/football. All right, you wonderful people, I'm going to go. I'm off for lunch. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again tomorrow.